today as the Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court.
Thank you, Tijan. It's an honor for me to be able to speak to you.
Growing up in Abdai particularly, with all the family and the brothers, if I may, Alaji Sar and Utiki, who really protected you, and you did it with so much grace and humility. When you sit back and reflect, today you are the top court in the world with over 102 countries mandating you to investigate and prosecute crimes. How do you feel this young girl that grew out of Abdai always turned out to be more so, a sense of pride for the nation and a lot of young men that look upon to you? How do you feel?
Well, Tijan, I just look at this as actually a privilege to be able to serve in this position. As you know, for me, the respect I have had for the law growing up has stayed with me until now. The respect for rule of law and to ensure that victims of these crimes are given the justice they deserve has always been part of me. So growing up, I have always remained focused, I believe, remained focused to achieving this goal. Of course, I was not training to become the prosecutor, chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, but my sense for justice and my yearning to see that there is accountability and there is justice has also stayed with me ever since I can remember. So I can say that probably this is what has informed my choices along as I grew up and as I developed in my career. I had always remained focused of being able to serve, being able to ensure that I can contribute what I can towards the rule of law, towards accountability and justice. This is what has been guiding me ever since.
Now, you just said focus and being able to serve. I am sure you are following the developments that are ongoing in your own home country of Gambia. And that would be the gist of this interview. You have given a few interviews that have preceded this one, but I am sure of what your fellow countrymen and compatriots, for that matter, have been saying about you, particularly being the ICC chief, the top cop in the world. So now, I will say that there has been no precedence in the fact that there is no known prosecutor of the ICC that has had problems of this magnitude before them, given that you're from the country of Gambia. Yeah. For that reason, they have said that with all that has been happening in the Gambia since April, you have been mute. Given the fact that you spoke on Burundi in 2015, and you called on all those involved in the Burundian incidences to refrain from violence. Yes. You found that anyone alleged to be committing crimes which the International Criminal Court has the authority to deal with could be held equally accountable. Madam Prosecutor, these are your own words. And I wonder why these words have not come from your office in the face of what is going on in the Gambia.
Tijan, thank you very much for that question, and I am glad I will have the opportunity to be able to clarify the situation. You know, the basis of the statements that I make as prosecutor of the ICC is Article 25(1)(2) of the statute, as well as the specific reference to the preventive mandate of the court in the preamble of the Rome Statute, which states as follows, and I will read that out to you. Determined to put an end to impunity for the perpetrators of these crimes and thus to contribute to the prevention of such crimes. This is unquote, and it's from the preamble to the Rome Statute. My office is aware of the recent events in the Gambia. In particular, we're aware of the deaths in custody of opposition activists. In fact, and I want to be clear on this, as soon as I learned of the media reports, I have assigned my team to assess the situation. I did that because in every state party to the ICC, when any of these events are happening on their territory, we monitor closely and we try to assess what is going on. So the UN Secretary General, as you know, has called for an investigation by the Gambian authorities to be conducted in these matters, and I fully support his position. My role, however, and I really want it to be very, very clear, my role is different. It is different in nature because the ICC, and I repeat this, and I'm using my words very carefully, the ICC is not a human rights body. It is not a human rights body. It is an international criminal tribunal, a court that has been established to investigate and prosecute the perpetrators of the world's worst crimes, namely war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. As the ICC prosecutor, and again, I want this to be very clear, as the ICC prosecutor, I have no mandate to issue a statement each time human rights abuses are reported in any given country. That I'm a national of the Gambia does not permit me to fulfill my role in any differently than I would do in another situation. This has to be clear. My professional obligations demand that I apply the Rome Statute, the legal framework of the Rome Statute, and to apply it consistently, to apply it independently, and to apply it impartially. And that is how I conduct myself without exception. Of course, I do issue statements, but in specific circumstances. Namely, when my office assesses that there is a tangible risk of war crimes, crimes against humanity, or otherwise crimes that are committed on a large scale, we issue these statements. But the situation in the Gambia, I emphasize, has not reached that point yet. If it was to be the case, if, for instance, further arrests were to result in further deaths in custody, I would robustly voice my concerns. I did it in other situations when this was required. And again, it is important to stress that the ICC is not a human rights body, but it's a judicial institution with jurisdiction over mass atrocities. Of course, these crimes are gravest forms of the human rights violations. I agree with that. These mass atrocities, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide are the gravest forms of human rights abuses. I agree with that. But I want to be clear so that I am not misunderstood. What I am saying is that the crimes under the court's jurisdiction are specific crimes with own specific elements of crimes. And we have an internal process in accordance with the Rome Statute, where we look at the situations of the unraveling violence. We look at that. And again, this is in context of when I said that we monitor the situations wherever these are taking place in ICC states parties. So now, what we have seen is that the requisite tests have not been to date in the case of the Gambia to warrant a public statement. As I said, we go by tests, we go by assessments, which we do internally. But should our requirements be met, I will not hesitate to do what I have to do, what I have been elected to do, what my mandate is under the Rome Statute. I will not hesitate to do it because, as I said, I was elected to do that work, and I took an oath to do that work. I should also add that this is the primary responsibility of the Gambian authorities to investigate the recent allegations of violence and ensuring that those found for wrongdoing are held accountable and brought to justice. and they are encouraged to do so.
Madam Prosecutor, further on, you said, and I quote, my office has received claims about reports of killings, imprisonment, torture, rape, and other forms of sexual violence, as well as cases of enforced disappearances. These acts, according to you, appears to fall within the jurisdiction of the ICC. In retrospect, all these allegations you listed are the allegations that are coming from the Gambia.
Yes.
It makes me want to ask, why still, given that you've made this statement on Burundi, why a statement has not come out from the ICC?
Again, Tijan, allow me to just reiterate that ICC jurisdiction is quite specific. To constitute crimes against humanity under the Rome Statute, such as this act must be deliberately committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. And also, if I can mention to you with respect to the jurisdiction of the ICC, let us also not forget that ICC jurisdiction starts from 2002 July onwards, 2002 going forward, not before 2002. It's just to clarify the jurisdiction of ICC. And as I also mentioned, I already said that as we do for all states parties to the ICC, my team is monitoring and assessing the situation in the Gambia. And if and when my intervention would be required in accordance with the Rome Statute legal framework, I keep emphasizing that, because we do not make these statements just in a vacuum. We have to act within the Rome Statute legal framework. If that happens, you can be assured that I will not hesitate to act.
Now, according to the Rome Statute, as prosecutor, you must consider the issues of jurisdiction, admissibility, and the interest of justice.
Yes, indeed.
Now, I am sure in your profession, an affidavit is quite a sacred document. Your office may have or may not have, but there is an affidavit that have been executed by two females that were detained, and I think the content of that affidavit, Madam Prosecutor, is quite disturbing. For example, in an affidavit executed by one Nago Njai, she talks about how they held her finger and broke it, how they jumped on, to quote her, they jumped on me, removed my clothes, I was naked. How do you feel as a prosecutor, and much more so as a woman, when you do something like that?
Again, Tijan, as I said, this ICC, this court, was set up for mass atrocities, for crimes that have been committed on a large scale. It has been set up for crimes that have been committed on the mass atrocities committed on a large scale. This is what the ICC was set up to do. If we do not meet that criteria, it would mean, or if we do not respect that criteria, it would mean that any crime that happens in any territory of the ICC, we have to jump in. And the ICC's jurisdiction is not about that. ICC does not have primary responsibility to investigate and prosecute these crimes. Our responsibility is ICC is actually a court of last resort. It's not a court of first instance. And we will only complement national jurisdictions. We do not replace it. We do not replace national jurisdictions, and this has to be clear. So wherever we have intervened or wherever we will intervene, it will mean that crimes have been committed on a large scale, or we have evidence that crimes are about to be committed on a very large scale, they are mass atrocities, and that we are aware or we've made assessment that the national authorities are not able or are not willing to try those crimes. We work within a framework. You do not just take it out of context with what we have to do as the statute demands that we do.
In a recent interview, you said, and I quote, "We are watching and assessing the events in the Gambia like any other state parties to the ICC statute."
Exactly.
A statement when necessary, and I hope the situation in the Gambia does not get there.
Yes.
Now, let's backtrack to Nigeria. If you do recall, you said, and I quote, "Any person who incites or engaging in acts of violence, including ordering, requesting, encouraging, or contributing to any form, to any other manner, to the commission of crimes within the ICC jurisdiction, is liable to prosecution either by the Nigerian courts or by the ICC."
Exactly.
And then no one should doubt my resolve, wherever necessary, to prosecute individuals responsible for the commission of ICC crimes.
Exactly.
Now, when a person dies in state custody, and there is evidence to suggest otherwise, and a statement like the one I just quoted by you is in the history book, don't you think criticism that you have expressed towards your own country and a government served in the past, those hold some thought?
Yes. I didn't hear the last part, but what I can say, at least from the first part of what you were saying about Nigeria and what I said there, I think, again, is clear. I have said there, and you have quoted it right now, will be liable to prosecution by the Nigerian authorities or by ICC when they fail to do that. So this is the criteria that we apply to other states, every other situation that takes place. And I think we really need to stop saying that because I'm a Gambian, I should act differently. This is not the oath I took. This is not why I was elected. I was elected to look into crimes that are happening on all the territories of states parties to the ICC. None of you, I mean, all the people who are insisting on I should make a statement, I should do it, none of you are more patriotic than myself. I'm also a Gambian, and I'm concerned with what happens in my territory. But I cannot be instrumentalized to use the fact that I am a Gambian to do what I should not do under the Rome Statute. This is not, this I will not allow to happen. I will do what the statute tells me to do, and I will follow the statute. If you look at all the statements that I have made, take the Nigerian example, for instance. We have been following also that situation in Nigeria. And if you see that a statement was made, it's because of all the information we have collected and assessed just prior to the elections in Nigeria. There were disturbing information about gathering of weapons, about attacks that were to be happen, and it was necessary, given that the elections were just the following week coming, it was necessary to say that even though you go to elections, you should exercise your civil rights without committing ICC crimes. So if you study all the statements that I have made, it's always with respect to the commission of ICC crimes or about to coming ICC crimes, but on a large scale, you know. And what you also need to understand is that in all the situations, it's not a blanket application assessment that we make for all the situations. We make a case-by-case assessment of each of the cases where we have either issued a statement or where I've taken a decision that we will open preliminary examination. It's always a case-by-case assessment. This also needs to be clear.
Having said that, Madam Prosecutor, The situation in the Gambia emanated from the April 14th demonstration seeking electoral reforms.
That's right.
In the process, one of the leader allegedly died in state custody.
Yeah.
Now, based on the Rome Statute, you have the authority to initiate a preliminary examination, which is the process of analyzing the information available to determine whether the applicable legal criteria have been met for opening investigation.
Yes.
According to the Rome Statute, as prosecutor, you must consider the issues of jurisdiction, admissibility, and the interest of justice.
Indeed.
Now, I am sure your office is at least aware of some of the claims that are made against the authorities in the Gambia. Now, what would be the next step as far as the ICC is concerned?
Yeah. Tijan, as I mentioned, we are monitoring and assessing the situation. As you know, the situation is not yet under preliminary examination. When a situation is under preliminary examination, already like just recently on the 25th of April, when I decided to open preliminary examination in Burundi after an observation of, I think, about a year, because the events in Burundi unfortunately started since 2015 in April. We have been collecting information, we've been assessing, and we've been monitoring the Burundi situation, and I was only able to come to a determination just recently in April that the situation warrants the opening of a preliminary examination. And what happens in a preliminary examination is still also a situation of assessment. I have to assess whether ICC crimes have been committed in this Burundi situation. I also have to look at the gravity of the crimes in the Burundi situation, whether it's grave enough to warrant the intervention of the ICC. I also have to look at the interest of justice, which is, will it be against the interest of justice if we were to intervene in Burundi? And finally, I have to look at the issue of complementarity. And what complementarity means in this case is are the Burundian authorities doing anything to address the crimes? Are they investigating? Are they prosecuting? Have they investigated or have they prosecuted? If the answer is in the negative, then the ICC will definitely take the next steps, which could be opening of an investigation or even not opening. But these are the assessments that we have to make within the context of a preliminary examination. I'm giving you the Burundi example because Burundi is under preliminary examination now. The Gambia is not. It's not under preliminary examination because we are, as I said, we are continuing our monitoring and assessment to see what is going on. That's what we're doing. And if and when my intervention would be required, again, I say in accordance with the Rome Statute legal framework, you can be assured that we will take the next steps. We will not hesitate to act.
Now, just to step over a little bit against the backdrop that you just answered. I know you remember Arab Sam in Kenya. You did accuse him of hate speech and filing ethnic discord. Now, I know you are, or if not, you will be today. The flames of discord are filing in the Gambia, particularly when a principal says something about another tribe, and predominantly Mandinka tribe, that they will be killed like ants, and the at the United Nations, Adam Ajang has spoken. Does that statement fall under jurisdiction, given that Arab Sang made the same speech in Kenya?
Yeah. Tijan, let me start just by saying this, and here I'm speaking again. Generally, I'm trying to explain our jurisdiction because it is clear that it is not understood, unfortunately. Legally speaking, incitement to violence may, may in certain circumstances amount to a crime under the Rome Statute. If you look at Article 25(3)(e) of the statute, it outlines incitement only for the crime of genocide in accordance with the Genocide Convention, Article 3. Again, this is a most serious crime with specific elements of the crime which must be met, including the intention to commit that crime, that is genocide. The intention is very important. With respect to the reference you made to the recent statement allegedly made by President Jammeh, as I mentioned, my team is monitoring the situation in the Gambia. And if and when my intervention should be required in accordance with the Rome Statute legal framework, you can be assured the office has to act. But I should add that in response to the latest alleged statement by President Jammeh, I have also been in touch with the authorities of the Gambia to raise the issue and convey to them that my office is observing the situation on the ground and will act when it's necessary, again in accordance with my mandate, and that is the Rome Statute, under the Rome Statute. So while it may be difficult for the public to fully understand, at the ICC, I will emphasize, we are an independent and impartial court of law with jurisdiction over specific mass atrocities. And Tijan, I'm choosing my words very carefully. Specific mass atrocities. Mass atrocities, I'm sure you know what that means. And yes, and we have processes in place. Those processes are in place to see whether we should or should not act in any given case, always in accordance with our mandate. Again, we are not a human rights body. You mentioned Adama Dieng. Adama Dieng's mandate is an SRHG for the prevention of genocide, was appointed by the UN. The UN can make a statement. The High Commissioner's Office for Human Rights can make a statement, but the jurisdiction of the ICC is different. Our specific mandate is under the Rome Statute to deal with crimes with specific elements.
Madam Prosecutor, let me ask this question. I know you are aware a lot of international bodies have spoken. The European Union has made statements and have even sanctions against your country. The UN and its Secretary General, which I believe the ICC has ties to, is also in the situation. So, ECOWAS. These are very credible international institutions. And I want to believe they all can't be wrong. So, do you, as Chief Prosecutor of the ICC, reconcile this? And what is your take on the stance that all these international organizations have taken?
Again, Tijan, I will re-emphasize, our mandates are not the same. The mandate is different. Again, I emphasize we are not a human rights body. We have been set up under a particular statute to look out for crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide. Where our jurisdiction has been met, taking into consideration all the legal framework, we will do what we have been mandated to do. Yeah. And whether it is in the Gambia or it is elsewhere, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it is an ICC state party, and unfortunately, crimes like this have been committed. Again, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide have been committed on the territory of a state party. It is different from what the UN bodies are doing. Our mandate is completely different, and people have to understand it in that way. We are a prosecuting office. We are a judicial office. It is different from making pronouncements because some human rights abuses have taken place. This is not what we do, except when we make the analysis on case-by-case basis And we see that this is a situation in which the ICC should either make a statement or open preliminary examinations or do whatever we have to do that the Rome Statute tells us to do. You talked about the UN, and you said that we have a relationship. Of course, we have a relationship with the UN. We have a relationship agreement with the UN. But you also must remember, and people must understand, that ICC is not under the UN. We are an independent and impartial body. We have been formed by states coming together and signing and ratifying a treaty and establishing an institution. We are not part of the UN. We do have a relationship, of course, but we are not part of the United Nations. And this should be understood as well.
Madam Prosecutor, when you talked about Burundi, you said there were claims and reports about killings, imprisonment, torture, and rape.
Yes.
Burundi claims that there was no physical evidence whatsoever of genocide in Burundi if we talk gravity. You did speak of pre-electoral violence.
Yes.
That on ethnic lines will not be tolerated.
Yes.
Now, it is pre-election time in Gambia, and a statement along those lines was made. Now, if a statement dealing with ethnicity has originated from the Gambia, why not make a statement like you did in Burundi?
Yeah. Again, Tijan, I keep on repeating what I have said already. We make assessments on a case-by-case basis, and we look at the necessity of making a preventive statement on a case-by-case basis. It is not in every instance that we have made statements, and I can give you other examples where we have not made statements, even though there have been rumors that there could be violence. In the recent elections of Congo-Brazzaville, I have not made any statements. And I can give you other examples, even though we heard that there could be violence. And all that is based on our own information collection and assessment. If we do not think that it is necessary or it may be counterproductive to make a statement at any given time, we have to also make that assessment ourselves, based on, as I said, the information that we are receiving. And all this assessment is on a case-by-case basis. You cannot be basing the argument on you have made a statement here, therefore you should make a statement there. You must take into account all the factors that are there. The last time I was giving the information, a statement, you recall I talked about Burundi and how we have been monitoring Burundi from April 2015, in fact, even before then, and only was able to open preliminary examinations in April of 2016. That's about a year. So all of that is because we want to be sure that we are acting strictly in accordance with our mandate. We are focusing on our own crimes, the ICC crimes, genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. And I've explained again and again that those crimes have specific elements. You cannot just say that because there is a crime that has been committed, ICC's jurisdiction has been met. It comes together with other things. And this is what I've been trying to explain. I know that there are now many experts out there of international criminal law who are all trying to interpret what the statute is and what it means. But I can tell you that we are working strictly in accordance with what our mandate allows us to do. And also to remind that there is a process in place. We are engaged in the process in the Gambia and other places. There is a process in place. We are looking into the situation. It is not yet the case where we have made a full assessment that a statement or opening a preliminary examination or other is necessary. It is not yet met as far as our legal framework is concerned. So these comparisons that we are making with Burundi, with Nigeria, it does not arise. It shouldn't arise because each case is taken on its own merits. We take case-by-case basis and assess what the situation is. I hope people can understand this.
So in sum, in plain man's English language, the situation in the Gambia has not met ICC criteria for a statement of preliminary examination. I want you to be explicitly clear on this, if I may.
I have been very, very explicit, I think, Tijan. I explained properly, I think I explained very carefully that in our assessment, at the moment, this case has not yet been met, not in the situation in the Gambia. And as I said, we shouldn't be comparing. You made a statement, you said this, you made it. Each case has to be taken on a case-by-case basis and an assessment is made. That doesn't mean that we are not observing, we are not monitoring what is happening in the Gambia. We are monitoring it. Yeah, we are looking at it, and if the situation warrants that we will act, we will act. But at the moment, it is not, and this is not to encourage any crimes to go on anything. It's just that our jurisdiction has not been met. Our criteria, let me put it that way, our criteria for whether making a statement or opening a preliminary exam has not yet been met in the case of the Gambia. This should be clear.
That is abundantly clear, but Madam Prosecutor, before I part off with you, a lot of your compatriots said you are in a position of authority to change the situation that is prevailing in the Gambia through your officers. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to talk to those people, your fellow countrymen, that think you occupy this very important position, and your country is facing problems that other countries have faced, whereas you made statements, and you did not make statements here. You have outlined the criteria that would have facilitated you making statements. But I want you to talk to your fellow countrymen and let them hear it from you.
Well, I can just finally say what I said before, Tijan. I am sitting here as prosecutor of the International Criminal Court with a strict mandate, which as I was elected by over 100 and currently, as you know, the ICC state parties are 124. I was elected by over 100 state parties to be in this position, and I took an oath that I will apply the statute in the strictest sense, without exception, without fear or favor. And this is what, as prosecutor, is what I'm doing. If it was any other country where I did not see the need to make a statement, I will not make a statement. Because as ICC prosecutor, I am ICC prosecutor. That comes first and foremost. Even as a voice of authority, if I'm asked to speak, you are a voice of authority, you can speak. Will I be asked to do that if it is another country? If I cannot do it for another country, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I also cannot do it in the case of the Gambia, because as I said, my mandate is to apply it without fear or favor, independently and impartially, very impartially. So I should not allow myself to be instrumentalized, and I will not.
On that note, we come to the conclusion of this great interview. Till we meet again. Bye-bye. This is Pamod Boja.
Okay, so you heard that interview there between Tijan Masane Sise and of course Fatou Bensouda, the prosecutor at the ICC, who also happens to be Gambian. According to Fatou Bensouda, Jammeh hasn't killed enough to warrant, of course, a response from the ICC. So more Gambians need to die. A population of 2 million more Gambians need to die before Fatou Bensouda will act. Tijan, thank you for joining us. A great interview. You asked the very, very tough questions and the curveballs. What are your impressions yourself, Tijan, first of all?
Well, I must say I am humbled to have been given this opportunity to talk to the prosecutor. As I said, I did not go in there for a kill. I went in there within the requisite attributes of the parameters of good journalism and the burning issues with seeking accuracy. And I prepared very thoroughly to ensure that I understood the way the ICC works and researching statements she's made in the past to ask her the questions. I actually went in there as a professional with no political affiliation. And if I go back 35 years ago, my bosses taught me some tricks in the trade. I know Sukai Bojang is listening. And Ahmed Kerr and Sonia, if they are, but they taught me how to throw curveballs. I threw a few curveballs at the prosecutor, and given that she's been in the job for quite a long time, she's well seasoned and versatile, and of course a very great legal mind, and she was prepared. If you realize, throughout the interview, I said Gambian authorities. I never mentioned anybody by name. That is involved in throwing what we call the curveball in interviews. Did I get all the answers I wanted? Maybe not. But did she speak? I think she did. Now it's up to the listeners to assess what she said, based on the current situation in the Gambia. But as a whole, I think I went in there with the questions, and like I told her staff after the fact, she is the biological grandmother of my only son. But this had no bearing on this interview if you listen to my questions. And again, let me make it perfectly clear, there was no one time that I had any contact whatsoever with the prosecutor. Not a single second that I spoke to her prior to her sitting up to the microphone for this interview. Her office was prepared with background information based on what was coming to her, which is a standard procedure for any interview you are conducting, particularly at that level. I listened to the interview today for the first time, and I must say I was emotional when my grandfather, Masana Caesar, was celebrated there. I think today the whole of Nyumi, Aljambu in particular, will be happy. But as a whole, I was humbled, very humbled. I have interviewed heads of states in the past, going as far back as the age of 15. President Asimbi Eyadema of Togo, President Olusegun Obasanjo, President Abdou Diouf, President Samuel Kenyan Doe. Sonia has taken me to these interviews, press conferences, and I have thrown questions there. I had called myself a reporter without portfolio then, and I remember President Jawara used to laugh at that place, and also the Vice President Bakari Bungadab. And there was nothing extraordinary then, but this interview, given what is going on in the Gambia, was pretty extraordinary, pretty tense, and I prepared like no other assignment I've ever done back in the day when I was a practicing journalist in the Gambia. I think honestly I gave her all I had, given this as the chief prosecutor.